You know, the best part about being wrong is that I get to make content about it. Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank and I hope that you are having a great day. This past weekend was the release weekend of Magic the Gathering Foundations, the newest entry to the standard format for Magic the Gathering, as well as a set that we are going to see a lot of over the next 5 years, because that's how long it's going to be standard legal. I had some initial thoughts about this set, and now that it's actually out and people are getting their hands on it, I'd like to share not only what I've learned, but where I think it's going to be going in the future. So let's get started with what I was very, very wrong about. First on the menu is the play boosters. You see, when I learned that Foundations was going to be standard legal for 5 years, I came to believe pretty quickly that the play boosters would not be highly desirable. After all, being available for 5 years means they had to be printed in such a way that would mean they would be available for 5 years to players, stores, etc. That led me to believe that, on terms of the secondary market at least, there would be a bit of a rejection to play boosters, but that was clearly not the case. Not only are play boosters doing really good, but collector boosters are doing really good. They are crazy high in demand. In fact, over this past weekend, in terms of sales rates, the sealed product for Foundations was the highest in the set, when I thought that was not going to be the case. I thought that the anime alt arts, the special showcase cards that they had going for the set, like the Land of War Elves, the one Angel, I thought that those, and Doubling Season, I thought that those were going to be like the highest selling products for Foundations, but I was wrong. I thought it was going to be a case where the boxes themselves weren't that desired because they'd be available for a long time, but the showcase cards would be. And while those showcase cards are highly desirable, the boxes are still at this moment outperforming them, which has been kind of a shock to me. I thought that the wider market would just not be all that interested in buying up these boxes, considering how available they're going to have to be for the next few years, which was, just something I was wrong about, and I'm not afraid to admit it. The other thing I was sort of wrong about was I really kind of thought that because of this set being a foundational set for standard for the next few years, that most of the cards inside would not be all that powerful or all that desirable to the average player and collector, and that the most expensive cards in the set, or maybe not the most expensive cards, but the most sought after, the most frequently bought, would be the special showcase cards, as I had said before. But that's also not the case. If you go to TCG Player right now and you look at the best-selling cards for Foundations, you'll see that Heir Apparent is like the best-selling loose single card for the set, and I thought that was just a reprint from Bloomberg, but it turns out I was wrong on that as well. So getting a lot wrong just with this first sentiment in terms of sales. So it's been a very impressive, eye-opening weekend for me, especially since it seems that Foundations is definitely doing better than a lot of previous Magic sets have led us to believe. And the tiny bit of optimist in me wants to say, well, Wizards is finally turning it around and we're going to get a smooth sailing standard for the next few years. But some part of me wants to be a bit pessimistic about this too, because, maybe it just is the fact that we have these cool alternate arts in the set and nothing else really appeals to people besides some really choice reprints like Doubling Season. Speaking of Doubling Season, it's kind of the only single card that I want to kind of focus on and linger on a bit. You see, Foundations is Doubling Season's like 8th or 9th printing, and it's going to be available for, again, 5 years. So I seriously thought that the secondary market price of Doubling Season was going to be more affected than it really was. I thought, especially some of the Double Masters reprints for it, I thought that those cards were going to dip in price, and that this new Doubling Season copy was going to come out at around $10 to $15, but I was wrong on that as well, because it's holding strong at 20 plus, which is very impressive for a card that, again, I can't really see myself being all that interested in picking up as a collector or as a secondary market investor, just because to someone like me, having a card be readily available in packs for 5 years just screams terrible investment choice. But, I'm curious to see how it's going to play out and how these secondary market prices are going to be not necessarily affected, but like how they're going to fluctuate over the next few years as standard evolves. I'm curious to see how doubling season and other cards in the set see their prices go up and down based on what's coming out around them. So it's just something I'm going to be keeping an eye on every so often, but it's not something I'm going to totally focus on. Just, what's doubling season at this year, Other than that, the set's been doing really good in the last few days. In fact, the positivity around the set has been really high. Too high, some people might think, especially since there's been a lot of chatter online about just general availability to the public. And you can definitely see it in terms of the sealed box prices. They're kind of going up and down in a bit of flux over the last few days. The collector boosters briefly peaked above 300, and they're down a bit now, but who knows where those prices are going to settle over the next few months. I just want to say that I still believe that these products are going to be readily available for a while, and that I have long held the opinion that you should not be hyper interested in buying sealed product for the long term for at least 6 months after release. That's a pretty good window, in my opinion, on when to look at a product to pick up for the long term, between 6 months to 2 years. And I say that because at the 6-month window, because I don't think I've talked about this on the channel before, at the 6-month window, it's been out a while, and you get to really see what the secondary market thinks of the product. And at the 2-year part, for most products, but not necessarily foundations, at the 2-year mark after release is when it tends to stop being readily available on the market. You don't find it at big box retail stores after 2 years. You don't find it at your LGS after 2 years. So that window is when I tend to eyeball up product for acquisition for the long term. Now, if you're just looking to crack this open and look at the singles and throw those on TCG Player or eBay, that's a different story. Pick it up if you think it's a good deal. But if you're interested in holding foundations for the long term, 5 to 10 years, I would say wait just a few more months and see where the price is at then, because who knows? Maybe there's a crash coming, or maybe there's some kind of crazy waves in the price. There is a Cyber Monday, Black Friday sale coming up too. So that's something to keep an eye on. So all I'm saying is, if I were going to buy foundations products to hold for the long term, I probably wouldn't look into buying them for a bit longer. Another thing that I completely forgot to mention was the Foundations starter box is also doing really good. I don't know whether or not to treat that as part of the actual set or not. It's just an onboarding experience for new players. Here's a fat pile of cards, and here's how to play the game, that kind of thing. When I look at beginner products, they tend to not do amazingly. Look at the arena starter kits, for example. There was a recent one for Assassin's Creed, and those don't tend to have amazing sales, but the Foundation starter box has been having some pretty great sales. It's one of the most sold items in terms of the Foundations as a whole, which is pretty good, I would say. I'm curious to see how long that lasts. Maybe it goes the entire way, or maybe it stops being sold in a week, but I'm curious about that product as well. Now, as for my thoughts on Foundations, I'm still very optimistic about the set as a whole, helping to bring Standard back into the spotlight for Magic the Gathering. I and many others believe that Standard is the lifeblood that allows Magic to flow normally, giving us a healthy metagame across Standard, allows us to have healthy metagames in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, Pauper, Commander. There's a lot of formats in Magic the Gathering. So Standard being the new player experience and the way that most people play the game the standard way people play Magic the Gathering, as long as standard is healthy, it allows the rest of the game to be healthy. I firmly believe that, and I know that there's some people out there who believe it as well. I'm optimistic about Foundation and the future. I still think that it's not a product that people should be FOMOing into, since, again, it's going to be available for a while. It just is. There's no way that Wizards is going to have a product be standard legal for 5 years and not have it be available for that time period. So I firmly believe that it's going to be available, that you shouldn't freak out and panic buy a bunch of boxes. But at the same time, it's clearly not a bad purchase. If you manage to pull some of these alt-art anime cards like the Land of War Elves, you're looking at a pretty penny. So that's also something to just take into account when thinking about whether or not you want to pick up the product to sell the singles. I wish I had more time to dedicate to eyeballing the metagame and the various sets effects on it, because I'm curious to see what Foundations will do to the various archetypes in Standard and how those archetypes will evolve as new sets are added to the format. Because going into 2025, there's going to be a lot of sets legal for Standard, and I'm curious to see how healthy the metagame really will be with Foundations going forward, with all the sets that it's going to have to interact with, all the sets that are going to have to be designed around it. What's going to be legal here, what's going to be legal there, and how they're going to interlace to make the format what it is. It's not really anything I'm going to be keeping too close of an eye on, because, again, I don't really have time to care about the metagames at this point, but it is, as I said, something that I'm very curious about. A final thought is, while these anime alt-art cards are absolutely beautiful and their special foily showcase is really nice, I'm curious to see where their prices are going to be in 3 to 5 years' time. I personally believe that the longer this set is out and the more these collector boosters are available, the lower those price points will have to dip. But I could be wrong, and I'm looking forward to seeing if I am wrong. Because if I am wrong, then these alt-art anime cards, Land of War Elves, the Angel, Doubling Season, etc., they're going to be highly sought-after collector's pieces. After all, we've seen the effects of the anime tax before, and the anime tax, I think, is going to be with us for a long time. That's really all I've got for you today, kids. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit all those little buttons down there below. It really does help me when fighting against that algorithm monster. And, you know, I'm curious what you guys think about Foundations as it is now and where you think it's going to go in the future. So leave a comment below about just your general thoughts on the set. And remember, I need to get healthy. So for every like this video receives, I'll be doing a push-up in the next one. And I very much look forward to seeing you kids then. Ciao. You know what I mean. My last video got 19 likes. Oh, that's 19.